Yo, what's up? Welcome back, guys, to the From the Sideline podcast with Francis.
And Peter, and today we have our back-to-back episode in a week. We've been consistently uploading. And today we're going to talk about the NFL, going to touch over the Seahawks, and then we're going to talk about standout players from the first week, and then we're going to finish the NFL off with a little debate about the Steelers' quarterback situation. And then, I lied, we're not going to finish it off there. We're going to do another prediction game for this season. We might switch it up a little. And then we're going to move on to college, talk about the Heisman race, and then just the standout team so far. And then from there, we're going to wrap it up. Super excited for another episode, and let's get right into it.
All right, so we're going to start off with the Seahawks here. A little shaky start to the game against the Denver Broncos at home. I thought it was going to be kind of a blowout. I mean, me and Peter both know Bo Nix is not a good quarterback. We've seen it at Oregon. Washington owned him, and our defense owned him on Sunday. Our defense is looking so much better with Mike McDonald. It actually makes me so optimistic. The only person that didn't really do anything was like Byron Murphy, but it's his first game and it was his birthday. I'll cut him some slack. But everybody else on defense was lights out. Beautiful pickup of Rayshon Jenkins in the offseason. He's an amazing player, amazing veteran to have in the locker room. Julian Love, our defensive captain, he played lights out. And then our new linebackers too, Tyrell Dodson. He played amazing. Jerome Baker played great.
Flying around.
And then, our defensive line and our cornerbacks, can't forget about them. Tariq Woolen looks like he did in his rookie year. He played really well. And our defense just looks like chains. Like, we miss a lot of open tackles in the open field. And that game, we were just lights out on tackling. We could not miss a tackle. And if we did, there was always somebody else right there to finish up the tackle. And we just look so cleaned up. We look like we have 12 guys on defense, and I love to see it. But the offense was not very good. At the start, it was insanely hard to watch. 2 safeties by one team in one game is like the saddest thing of all time.
In one half,
yeah. Our offensive line looked so bad. But we found a rhythm, and Gino finally got right into it. And Kenneth Walker looks like a big bright spot.
I was really impressed with especially Kenneth Walker, and then Zach Charbonnet had that receiving touchdown. The run game just looks so good, and it's really nice to see a new approach to the Seahawks that we haven't seen in a while. They're actually pulling away from games. I know it looked a little closer than it actually was at the end, but as Francis said, the defense was just absolutely stout. Nothing got past them. They only allowed 16 points. These 2 safeties were really just the fault of the Seahawks offense, and the whole unit just played so well, and it was so refreshing to see after all those years, after the Legion of Boom, where we had good defenses, and it feels like we're kind of back. The Legion of Zoom, maybe it's finally coming together. But Gino played fine. That touchdown run he showed a lot with his legs that I didn't really know he had. He had the top speed out of all the Seahawks players for the entire game, which was really impressive and surprising. I don't think Francis or I knew that he had that in him. But the run game for me was the main part. DK was quiet. Tyler Lockett actually had a few catches.
Yeah.
Jackson Smith and Jig was quiet. But because the run game was working, and when it's working, you got to stick with it. Just giving the ball to Kenneth Walker, he was getting 5-6 yards a carry. It was just working out great. And but yeah, that defense was the main bright spot of the game. Offense had a little bumps in the beginning, but they got going.
By no means, though, would I discredit our wide receivers, because they looked awesome. And I mean, it was obviously if Gino's not passing them the ball, then they're not going to make any plays. But if you look at the stats and you just look at the box score, you might think, oh, Pat Surtain was shadowing DK the whole game, and Pat Surtain owned him. But if you really watch the whole game, DK Metcalf was getting fouled a ton. He drew a lot of PIs from Surtain, and honestly, he was routing him pretty good. But it's just Gino had such little time in the pocket. I think he had statistically the least amount of time in the pocket. He had the most amount of pressure by any quarterback the entire week. And our offensive line just looked terrible. But Abraham Lincoln should be coming back next week. And Charles Cross was the highest rated tackle by PFF in week 1, which is amazing to see. One thing I would change is I would put Christian Haynes in, our third-round pick from UConn. He looked great in college, great run blocker, great pass blocker. He's definitely, in my opinion, much better than any of the guards that we have starting right now. And then also, I can't, like, the Broncos would not have scored 20 points. I mean, they scored 16 points on offense, but they had an average starting field position of, like, our 40, 30-yard line. And, like, obviously they're going to score field goals if they're starting that close to our end zone. So, like, if we actually played a solid game offensively, I think they could have scored less than 10 points, to be honest. Like, maybe, like, just 3 field goals. But, yeah.
One more thing. I just wanted to express my opinion that the Seahawks O-line, especially in pass protection, the run blocking was fine. The pass protection was so abysmal.
Yeah.
And the loss of George Fant is going to hurt. Stone Forsythe just looked lost out there.
Yeah.
Need to get Abe Lucas back. But, yeah, that's going to be a really big thing to watch from now on because he's just a complete liability out there. And Geno didn't have any time, and it was hard for those routes to develop for the receivers early in that first half. They progressed a little better as the game continued, but that's still unacceptable giving your quarterback 1 or 2 seconds of time throughout each snap.
I would also say, like, Geno looked really shaky at the start. Like, he looked really uncomfortable, and he didn't look poised in the pocket. He didn't look prepared. He looked shaky and nervous. And, I mean, I did not like what I was seeing when the game started out of Geno. I was expecting him to be lights out. I mean, we already had preseason and, like, training camp and stuff, so he should be locked in, and he did not look locked in at the start of the game. So yeah, I mean, everything looks good right now besides the O-line on pass blocking and then maybe a little bit of Geno, but defense looks amazing, wide receiver core looks amazing, running game looks amazing. So yeah. All right, moving on from the Seahawks, we're gonna do. Both of us have 3 standout players from Week 1. So I'm gonna start us off. My first player is Saquon Barkley. Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, that's insane that they let him on the Eagles. He is still a top 5 running back in the league, even through all the injuries. And the fact that you gave him one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, one of the best run blocking lines in the NFL. I mean, he doesn't have to do, like, on the Giants, he was frantic and he showed off all his talent with all the jump cuts and stuff and the hurdles. But now he actually has time to see the hole and the gap and go through there and then do all the stuff after the line of scrimmage instead of doing it before. And he just looked so comfortable. He had so much speed, so much agility, and, I mean, he's an A-plus transfer to the Eagles. He's going to make this offense exponentially better. Who's your first player, Peter?
My first player is Joe Mixon from the Houston Texans. His first game with the Texans, first game off the Bengals, and he looked like that classic Joe Mixon that we've seen in years past. He was just absolutely sensational. 30 carries. He never wavered, and he's going to be getting those goal line touches all year for Houston. For them to have a running back like him instead of Dameon Pierce and the tandem that they've had who haven't been able to really get their foot down, it's just going to be so instrumental for them to have a guy like Joe Mixon, just a workhorse back who you can give it to 30 times a game. And he looked way more explosive than we've seen him in the past couple years. Looks like he's been putting in a lot of work over the offseason, and it really showed off. Just super consistent throughout the whole game. And it's going to be so I think he's going to be good throughout the whole season when he's paired with that lethal Texans air attack. Stroud's going to be able to just hand it to him and rely on him so that they can set up opportunities through the air. And I think this is huge for Houston as a team. I think this maybe adds 1 or 2 wins more than I was thinking before to their record, because I just had no idea that he was going to be this good. Kind of came out of nowhere. But, yeah, it's absolutely amazing for that Texans offense.
My second player is T.J. Watt. I mean, we obviously know of T.J. Watt's excellence already and how good he is. But I mean, I think it should be consensus that he's solidified himself as the best defensive player in the NFL right now. No? Who do you think?
I think T.J. Watt is super overrated.
I mean, if you watch the Steelers game, like, on defense, literally every single snap, he's beating his guy, like, every single time. and getting pressure. I mean, like, the impact is insane. The Steelers' defense played so much better, and T.J. Watt has everything to do with that. He is the leader of that defense, and he, like, really boosts their morale and boosts, like, their play by so much. And he just has, I mean, I think he has the biggest impact I've seen, like, on a team. Like, the last game they played, the Steelers, I think that was the biggest impact I've seen from a single player on a whole team, like anywhere. I don't see any defensive player better in the NFL. Max Crosby got locked up by Joe Alt and Myles Garrett,
Micah Parsons.
Maybe, I mean, Myles Garrett, it's a debate between him and TJ Watt, but that's always been like a big who's the best in the league debate. Micah Parsons, I really like Micah Parsons, but I don't think he's at the same level as Myles Garrett and TJ Watt.
I do. I'm a huge Micah guy.
I am too, but
he looked absolutely sensational in that Cowboys game. We saw Tom Brady interviewing him after the game. He was getting pressure left and right, and you could easily say that he dominated just the way TJ Watt did. Also, when you look at the analytics, I don't like to be this guy, but when you look at the analytics from PFF, Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons both have far higher PFF ratings than TJ Watt, which is just kind of reviewed by experts, and they give you a composite score. So,
but when he's healthy, like, look at the production. Like, you saw how many sacks he had. Like, he set a record, and even when he got injured before, he was.
But Myles Garrett brings that whole, like, new element with the run defense.
I don't know, man. Who's your second guy?
My second guy is Jameson Williams, wide receiver from the Detroit Lions, number 9. Just absolutely insane that we forgot about this guy. It's his 3rd year in the league now. I've always been a truther. I've always believed that he's going to be one of the best players, one of the best receivers from that class with Drake London, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. I've always believed that he's going to be right up there at 1 or 2. And it's taken a while, but I feel like this is the year where we're finally going to see him blossom. He is one of the fastest players in the entire NFL, and nobody has realized this. When he gets going on that vertical speed, you can't catch him. He's gone. We saw that in the playoff game, in the NFC Championship game versus the 49ers last year. He took an end around, and he just blew by everyone. And then on this game on Sunday Night Football, he just took the whole game by storm. He showcases his speed, and he doesn't need to get a ton of receptions to make an impact. He's a huge yards after catch guy, and he burns his opponent quarterbacks just so easily. It's really truly beautiful to watch, and his route running is also a super underrated area of his game. He took a lot of targets and receptions away from Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I think that's something to watch out for this season. I think he's going to become a true strong wide receiver too. I think he's even going to become one of the best in the league. So I'm really excited for what he's going to do this season.
You think he's as good as Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson?
Well, I was saying that at the time as that draft happened. But I think he does have that potential. I don't know about Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave, but I think he can get pretty close to those guys.
All right. My third guy is Anthony Richardson. I mean, the talent's obviously there. He needs to stay healthy, be available, and he needs to just get more experience in the NFL, because you can tell he's like new to this stuff, and just by the way he plays. But man, is he talented! That his arm is maybe the most powerful arm I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes. I mean, we saw him at the combine; he was throwing 70 yards like it's like nothing, and we all saw that throw to Alec Pierce. I mean, man, what was that, like 60 yards or like 50 yards just off the back foot, and like just not even stepping up into it. And it's just absolute dot into double coverage to Alec Pierce. That was insane to watch. And I mean, if he can get all this stuff dialed in and stay healthy, I think he has a debate to be the best quarterback coming out of his class with guys like Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. And I mean, CJ Stroud had a top 5 season last year, but I mean, Anthony Richardson really is one of those guys. He's super talented. I see his upside being him being a top 5 quarterback in this NFL, having a shot at an MVP one of these years.
My final player is Jalen Johnson from the Chicago Bears. What a game from him. I just want to read off some quick stats here. When covering his receivers, he only allowed 1 catch for -2 yards. He had 1 interception, and he forced that interception, and he had a 2.8 passer rating allowed when he was being thrown to. this performance in week 1 just cemented him as one of the best cornerbacks in the entire NFL. I think he's definitely top 5, if not top 3. That performance was just absolutely insane. He completely neutralized Calvin Ridley in that Titans air attack. Everywhere he threw to, or every receiver he guarded was just absolutely clamped. And they kept throwing at him for some reason. I'm not sure why. And it would just never work. Calvin Ridley is not a bad receiver by any means. There's a reason why he was drafted in the top half of the first round. And Jalen Johnson made him look like a high school JV, scrawny little white dude. Like, it was that bad of a performance. And it's not because Calvin Ridley's bad. It's because Jalen Johnson's easily a top 3 cornerback in the NFL. And that performance is just the beginning for this season.
All right, now moving on, we got our Steelers quarterback room debate. Peter, who do you think should be starting week 2, Justin Fields or Russell Wilson?
For me, this is a no-brainer. I think it should be Russell Wilson. Justin Fields looked good, but when you sign a veteran quarterback like Russell Wilson, you want to have Justin Fields sit behind him, and you want to at least give him a chance because, 3 years ago, he was the front runner for MVP through the middle of the season. And I don't think you can just forget about that. The situation is bad in Denver. His relationship with Sean Payton. And I think it's completely wrong to not give him a chance here. Justin Fields can be the future. He can wait. But Russell Wilson, you got to just test your luck and see what you got now because we know what he can do. And if he does return to his former self, we could see a completely different Steelers team. But as for Justin Fields, I think has the potential to be good, but we don't know. We've never seen him at the level that we've seen Russell Wilson at, and I think it's a no-brainer that you have to start Russell Wilson. You have to try him out for at least the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, I agree. It's got to be Russell. Justin Fields honestly didn't even look that amazing. They got the dub, but you can't just – I think a good rule in the NFL is that if one quarterback has a starting job but then they get injured, then by the time they come back, they should still have the job. No matter how good the backup played. And Justin Fields didn't even play that amazing. So you got to give Russell Wilson back the job. And, we just saw how Justin Fields played, and now we need to see how Russell Wilson plays so we can compare them. And you brought them in for a reason. You brought Russell Wilson in for a reason, a veteran guy. Like Peter said, MVP frontrunner at one point. Was one of the best quarterbacks in the league at one point. And had kind of a bounce-back season last year with the Broncos, but still not a great one, but we still see flashes of him being that guy who is that good. Russell Wilson, when he was on the Seahawks, man, he was something different. But maybe we can see him like that again with the Steelers. Maybe him and George Pickens have a connection there, but you got to test them out. They definitely have a better chance of winning anything with Russell Wilson behind center. So you got to try him out at least. Justin Wilson's can wait for the future because he probably is the future of the Steelers offense. So before we get into college, I just wanted to talk a little about the Falcons quarterback room because Kirk Cousins played like poop and Jesus, it was so hard to watch that. I'm a Kirk Cousins supporter. I think he's a great quarterback. When he was on the Vikings, he was amazing. When he was on the Redskins, he was amazing. But now that past weekend, oh my God, it was so hard to watch. And Michael Penix, a young guy, but not even that young for a rookie. Just we've seen how good he is of just throwing the rock and how good his placement is, how beautiful the ball looks coming out of his hand. He has so much potential. I think they should start him and see how he does in the Falcons system. What do you think?
Francis and I are both Washington fans, so this kind of hurts me to say. I'm probably a bigger fan than him. I literally went to the national championship game. But it pains me to say they need to start Kirk Cousins. They gave him a 4-year, $192 million contract. I know they drafted Penix 8th overall, and I know he's an older rookie, but that you cannot bench a guy after one game who you gave $192 million to. It's just not the way football works. And if they did that, that would be probably the stupidest contract in football history. So you have to play Kirk Cousins for the remainder of the season, probably the remainder of the next season. As much as it hurts to say it, if he's that bad, then you can go to Penix. But you can't do anything after one game.
I mean, realistically, you're right, but I'm just saying I think they have a better chance of winning if they have Michael Penix behind center, starting at quarterback. I think
I agree with you, but they're never gonna do it.
I know they won't do it, but I think they should. And you said this could if they did that this would go down as the worst contract in NFL history. I still think it's up there as one of the worst. What is this decision making from the Falcons? Why would you give Kirk Cousins this much money and then draft a old quarterback at 8th overall? I just don't get it.
They dug themselves into this hole, and if Kirk Cousins has a poor season this year, they're going to be facing the consequences.
Yeah, I want to see them trade Michael Penix, to be honest. I'm just so sad they drafted him. They just set him up for failure, set their team up for failure. They could have got so much value at 8.
Yeah, we both really want to see him play. They could have gotten another weapon, probably a defensive player.
Yeah.
It's just it was a pretty stupid pick, and it's even stupider seeing Kirk Cousins' poor performance on Sunday. Next topic we're going to move to is college football. We're going to save our prediction game until the end. First topic for college, the Heisman race, and specifically going to talk about that Boise State-Oregon game, which I stayed up to watch, and Ashton Jeanty, the Boise State running back. He had 200-something yards this game, 3 touchdowns. And then the first game, he had 271 yards and 6 touchdowns. So he already has around 500 yards and 9 touchdowns through 2 games of the season. This man, I'm not exaggerating when I say this, is one of the most dynamic runners of the football I've ever seen on this college football level. The way he makes his cuts and breaks tackles is I've never seen anything like it, especially from a non-Power 5 group of 5 school. It's just absolutely incredible. And Boise State, he really does have a chance at winning the Heisman. This is one of the highest chances we've seen from a group of 5 player. And obviously, if he continues this performance, he's on pace for 3,000 yards right now and 50 touchdowns. You can't not win the Heisman with that at the Power 5 level or at the FBS level. So as long as he continues it to an extent, I genuinely think he could win the Heisman. And Boise State put up a pretty good fight against Oregon. Oregon barely squeaked that one out. They're looking very fraudulent, but we can save that for later. I think they're going to lose soon. But, yeah, Jeanty just looked absolutely amazing. As for other Heisman candidates, I think he kind of stands out alone. What do you have to say, Francis?
I've seen a lot of people saying that he's the Heisman front-runner right now, and I do not mind that take at all. Like Peter said, on pace for 3,000 rushing yards. I mean, that is insane. And people are going to throw the debate out that he's going against Group of 5 competition, but, I mean, we just saw what he did to Oregon's defense, so that debate should go out the window. I agree. He is he's definitely the best running back in the nation right now. I mean, people were expecting Ollie Gordon, Travion Henderson, Quinton Judkins, but, dude, Ashton Jeanty he's legit, and if he keeps this up, I think that he should win the Heisman, but I don't think they will give it to him. I think they're going to give it to the quarterback who has the most successful team in the nation. And honestly, college football this year is pretty weak. All the strong teams don't look that strong. There's not many standout players in this draft class. Like last year, we obviously had Caleb Williams, and we had Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Roma Dunze. This year, I mean, I know it's been 2 weeks, but it's not looking like we already knew Caleb Williams was going to be this kind of prospect at this time last year, and we're not seeing that from players this year. So Ashton Jeanty has a real solid chance. I think they'll give it to Quinn Ewers if Texas finishes top 2 seed.
I could see Jalen Milroe as well. He looked pretty good from what I've seen from him so far.
If Ole Miss finishes top 4, I think they'll give it to Jackson Dart because, I mean, Ole Miss is a pretty sporadic program, and they're not known for having the most success in college football. And if they finish top 4, Jackson Dart, I think he truly does deserve it. Even though I'm not even biased because he was my prediction before the season, but Jackson Dart has a serious chance. I think Quinn Ewers will probably win that then though, or maybe Carson Beck. But I mean, if Ashton Jeanty keeps us up, if he doesn't win the Heisman, then there's going to be a lot of mad people. that are going to be vouching for Ashton Jeanty.
One more thing I just wanted to touch on before we wrap up with our game is that the Oregon Ducks have looked extremely fraudulent this year, winning by 3 points against Boise State and barely squeaking by Idaho. As soon as they play a Power 5 school, mark my words, they will get fraud checked. Dylan Gabriel is an average quarterback, and Dan Lanning is a below-average coach. We've seen what Bo Nix is in the NFL. He's a product of the system. He's a product of the screen system with Troy Franklin and that exact group of guys. And now that they don't have that exact group of guys, they're not going to be able to do anything anymore. They're a pretty bad football team, and especially that defense and O-line. They've lost so many guys. They're just not the same anymore, and it's really going to hurt them as soon as they start their first season in Big Ten play.
I actually think Dylan Gabriel's pretty solid, but
he's a pretty good quarterback. He did well. It's his 6th year in college.
yeah, he's super old.
But regardless of that, the team as a whole is not very good.
Yeah. I also like Tez Johnson.
Yeah. He's Bo Nix's brother.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We're coming back with our game this year.
Should have done it last week.
Yeah, we should have done it last week. Messed up a little. But we're going to switch it back up. We're going to add a new element. So last year we did 2 underdogs and 1 lock. But this year we're going to go 1 lock, 1 underdog, and 1 pick with the spread. You get 2 points for getting the underdog right, plus 1 for getting a lock or a spread right. And then you get -1 for getting your lock wrong. So I'm going to start it off for my lock. This is a little risky because the Patriots did win this week, but I'm going to go Seahawks Patriots. I think this is a pretty easy win for the Seahawks. I think we match up pretty well against the Pats, but it makes me a little bit nervous. But obviously I'm going to be rooting for us the whole way. So I'm going to pick us here. I think we win. I give us 80-20% chance, but it's a -3.5 spread, a little closer than most fans would like, but yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm going to root for the Seahawks there. The Patriots defense could give us some fits, but their offense versus our defense is just going to be canceled out. My lock is going to be the Texans over the Bears. I did not like how Caleb Williams performed. Under 100 passing yards is crazy, even worse than Bo Nix. And Bo Nix is the worst quarterback in the NFL. And Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall pick, Minnie Mahomes, the next best thing, did not look like that guy. Roma Dunes is out, right, Peter?
Yep.
So there's one less weapon. And the Bears defense looks really good. I'm not going to lie. The Bears defense looked really good, but the Texans offense firepower is going to be too much for them to handle. And the Texans have underrated defense as well. So I'm going to be taking the Texans as my lock. Who's your underdog, Pete?
My underdog is the Buffalo Bills against the Dolphins. This one's kind of cheating. They're -1 underdogs. I think we might have to establish a rule in the future that you have to be under a certain spread, so maybe under -3. But for now, we're just going to go with this. I do think the Dolphins should be favored in this game, but Josh Allen has been so good using his legs and using his arm. I think this is the game that Keon Coleman finally establishes himself. He looked great in that first game. He had 4 catches for around 51 yards, I think. But I think this is the game he exposes that Dolphins secondary. Every time he's not matched up with Jalen Ramsey, who has looked a little washed lately.
Yeah, he has.
He has. He's been getting beat. I forget who beat him in the end zone last weekend. I saw someone. Yeah. Anyways, I think this is the game of Keon Coleman, and I think the Bills take it.
I think the Dolphins will take this one. The Bills looked really weak last week, so honestly, I don't even think we need to establish that rule because if you're favored, then you're probably going to win. But my underdog is the Browns over the Jags. A little bit of a hot take here, but that's what you got to do with these underdog takes. I mean, Deshaun Watson looked terrible, really bad.
And he caught another case, by the way, so that might be something to watch out for.
Yeah, that
24
could
now.
Be. But
it's not funny. We don't.
We don't condone that.
We don't condone that behavior.
But I mean, when he was on the Texans, man, was he special? Top 5 quarterback in the NFL easily, and I mean, we saw sparks of it, little spurts last season, the year before, but the last weekend was really hard to watch. Really hard to watch. But I have Amari Cooper on my fantasy team. Hopefully he goes off. And the Browns' defense is really solid as well. Their secondary is good. Myles Garrett. And the Jags look shaky, man. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, I don't know how I feel about Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I kind of like the guy, but he's not in that upper echelon tier of quarterbacks. And, I mean, he was supposed to be really special. Number 1 overall pick, highest rated prospect.
He played a really good game on
he did.
last Sunday, though.
And Brian Thomas is really good NFL player. He's showing good signs of being a good wide receiver in the NFL. But I'm going to take the Browns here. The Jags, I don't really like them that much as a team.
Yeah, so my last pick with the spread is Chiefs minus 5.5 against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals lost to the Patriots. I don't know how the spread is less than a touchdown. The Chiefs just beat the Ravens, who showed that they were a really good team. Rashee Rice looked so good. Xavier Worthy bursting onto the scene. The Chiefs win this game by 2 scores. Or by double digits, I'll say. They're going to win handily. I don't think people should be questioning this, and I hope I don't have to walk back this statement, but this could have easily been my lock. So I think the spread is a pretty safe bet here. And then just moving back up, just for a sec, I picked the Bills. I think the Dolphins should be favored, but really rooting for them. Josh Allen, James Cook, both on my fantasy team, so need a big day from both those boys.
Joe Burrow seems to be the Chiefs' kryptonite, so I don't know. The Bengals could pull something special. I think they had, there were so many stupid turnovers that they had in the first half. I watched the game back, and, the Bengals just had a really unfortunate game. The Patriots' defense also was really good, and the Bengals' defense just needs to step it up. That's all it is. But, the Chiefs will probably win, but who knows? They might beat the Bengals might beat the spread. So my spread pick is the Jets minus 3.5 over the Titans. The Titans suck, man. There's not much more I can say that. The Jets didn't look great against 49ers, but that's, the best defense in the NFL. So, wasn't expecting much from their offense, and they still looked good. They had that one drive in the start that looked incredible. Breece Hall, one of the most dynamic running backs in the NFL. Garrett Wilson, one of the most high potential wide receivers in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And they have a really special defense with a defensive-minded head coach. Jets, minus 3.5, easily hitting that. I think they'll win by 2 scores. Easily. More than 10 points. Titans suck. Will Levis sucks. And, hopefully Calvin Ridley plays good on the fantasy team, but their defense carried them, and, yeah, Will Levis sucks. So I'm taking the Jets minus 2.5 really easily. But that's going to wrap up our episode. Thank you so much for listening all the way through. Make sure you listen. Come back to our next episode to see how our points game works out and more takes later. Thank you so much for listening.
And
that's it.
Make sure to follow From the Sidelines Pod on Instagram, by the way. It's that one with the green logo. And, thanks so much for listening. We'll be back at you next week.